That would have stopped it.
Gentleman at the back.
Hi, thanks. Yeah. My name's Tony. I'm totally with virtually everything that's said today. The one sort of slight issue I have is the exports equals bad, imports equals good element of MMT, because the way I see it, for most economies such as the UK, we bring in imports, definitely very good. We give them out pounds in return, but obviously in the long run, that means that the people who hold the pounds have a call on UK assets or UK goods and services. So the way I see it, ultimately, it would net to zero. The one exception to that, where I do agree with you, is America. As with the exorbitant privilege of the dollar, then the people who get dollars are happy to use the dollars for buying oil, buying gold, buying copper. They don't have to spend it in America. So I totally agree with you in terms of the dollar, but I don't agree with the export is bad, imports good for everything other than the dollar. Can you talk about that?
Well, so what's happening is you're taking in real goods and services, and somebody else is piling up a sterling account at your bank, right? So, and it's not a governmental deficit. The government hasn't done anything. It's just somebody in the private sector is doing this. And whoever's holding those accounts is taking a pretty enormous risk because the value is undefined. We just saw what's happened to each one. Okay, and if at some point it suits public purpose to not allow your exports, you can do that. You can put export controls on, you can have export taxes, you can do all kinds of things to make sure that guy who, from Korea, who sold you all those Hyundais, can't buy anything with that money he got. And you know what? They don't care. Because the reason they're doing it is because the exporters are in charge in those countries, and they're doing it to keep their wages low, to suppress their real costs, right? So that they can sell to you so that he can make his profit margin, whatever it is. And he doesn't really care about what's happening to the standard of living of his country, population, or whether in 10 or 20 years they can ever buy anything with the dollars the government has piled up as foreign exchange reserves to support his immediate sales. So you're on the right side of the trade, let's put it that way. You hold all the cards at that point. They have a number in a bank account, and you have control of all your product that you can export or not on any terms you want. You haven't guaranteed prices in the future. If you guarantee prices in the future, that falls under external debt. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Australia's been running external deficits of about 4% of GDP since the 70s. And that means that the rest of the world are accumulating these financial assets in Australian dollars, and we're getting iPhones. Now, who's got the real risk? I don't have the real risk. I've got the iPhone. And the car and the BMWs and all the rest of it. I don't have a BMW. Motorcycle. And so imagine these people that are holding all these Australian dollars, and I'm using Australian dollars specifically to avoid this US stuff. Now, what are they going to do with it? Well, if they try to sell it, then a lot of progressives say, well, they'll just dump the Australian dollar. Well, they'd be stupid to do that because they'll make immediate losses. So the first thing is that they're going to be risk averse in liquidating the stocks of Australian dollars they hold. Okay, so then what can they do with them? Okay, they can transfer them into real goods and services available for sale in Australian dollars. Well, that's why Australia's got a Foreign Investment Review Board, to stop them having unregulated capacity to buy whatever they can that's for sale. So we don't allow foreigners to buy real estate unless they produce new real estate, houses. Now, the foreign investment guidelines, in my view, are far too lax, because we're seeing in our cities apartment block booms because they can actually build new constructions. And there's one famous case in Melbourne where I grew up where they've done studies of the water usage, and these towers are 80% unoccupied. They're just speculative vehicles. So that's the first point. The risk risk is on the exporter, not the importer. But the second point, and I agree with you, this is an agreement, is that as a progressive left person, I don't want foreign capital being able to use that money, that is those Australian dollar holdings, in ways that give corporate sector leverage. And so I think, and I think this is a problem everywhere, that you've got to make sure that that money can't be used to manipulate the political process through lobbying. You've got to have very tight restrictions, like Warren said, on what they can buy and what they can't buy with it in Australian dollars. But it's not just this idea that because the US is the so-called reserve currency, that MMT only applies to the US is a falsehood. It applies to any monetary system.
Just really quick. Out there you have the likes of the JP Morgan World Index, and they give every currency a weighting. It adds up to 100%. And if you're a prudent investor, you want your diversity of currency holdings to fit that. So if you're in India, you just sold your construction company for rupiah or whatever, and you want to retire, you now go to your investment management person. He says, okay, well, you need to diversify across countries, and 4% is going to be in Australian dollars, and 22% will be US dollars. And so when they do that, they've assured these countries in the index that they can be net importers forever if they want to. Because those funds go into retirement accounts, pension funds. They're all diversifying globally this way. All the people working check off the box, yes, I want global diversification, because over the last 28 years it's been 0.5% better than not doing it, or some study somebody did. And those funds never get spent. They just pile up forever. Yeah.
It's equally worth noting that occasionally fears are expressed about the Chinese dumping US-denominated assets, when it never happens for the same reason of capital loss.
Right. Actually, they did do it for almost $1 trillion a few years ago. Nobody even noticed.
Okay, moving.